Alright, here we go. This is NET-113. We're on day 11 already. And we finished up chapter 3. We started chapter 4. And the date today, 10/4/16. It's Tuesday. Okay, let me highlight. First of all, we're in week 6. Okay, chapter 3, the students had time to review. They took the final. We were done by 12. Chapter 4 topics, we talked about processors and memory. And then we spent a fair amount of time talking about how it works. Not a lot of details, but a little bit how it works. We're going to take Chapter 4 pre-assessment. That'll be available from 9 to 11:30 in MH216. PC 229 is going to be used for the Explore 2016, and I'll be busy with that. But the students in IT Essentials will go to MH216, and the test will be available during that time. And you need to take it in those rooms. You know, for those of you that are in ethics, it'll be after ethics. Otherwise, the rest of you will have to manage to get to 216 prior to 11. Well, actually, you have to get in there in time to be done by 11:30. Okay. Also on Thursday, there's a research lab. Some people are in groups. If you weren't in class today, okay, if you weren't in class today, then you'll have to work on it individually. But it's 3 systems, a high-end system where you'd get, you know, in the systems we're actually purchasing a processor, memory, and a motherboard to put them all on. But nothing else, just those 3. So we're talking about a high-end system. Now we're talking about a desktop system, a system basically for one person, not a server. A medium system, this is one that seems to students a little bit harder to find, but we want, you know, pretty much high-end, but we don't want to spend as much money as you would here, like a gaming system simulation, maybe running Adobe Photoshop and those type of things. But yet here being able to be a good programming system, a good system to test stuff with, but yet not a real expensive high-end. And then a low-end system, which we talked about, probably wouldn't purchase like this, the 3 different parts, you know, but we're going to price it anyway. And you're going to create a report. And this is in one of the modules. Okay? Then lab work. We updated the other 3 routers, and so we got that all done, put the memory in it, and students were allowed to work on Chapter 4 labs. You'll probably end up having to do most of this lab work outside of class, with the exception of the actual work with the processors. Okay? And we actually loaded memory here already, so we actually done that together in class. All right. In a nutshell, we talked a little bit here about the boot process. The system boots, gets an operating system loaded, and then the kernel of that operating system is resident and running in the computer. Scheduling events, and then we talked about you load an application or a program. Program comes off storage in the memory, and then it functions like a process. We talked about previously processes function by themselves, but now we have the ability to create a thread from the process. So we can have a couple threads. They share resources in memory and so forth, but yet they can be processed. Arithmetic logic unit, they can be processed by be processed at the same time inside the processor. Okay, so we talked about, you know, having items stored on storage, bringing it into memory, and then going from memory to the processor and back. Now it would make sense if we could keep the things we use most often with the processor, so we end up talking a little bit about cache memory. Alright, we talked about program stack, you know, with the instructions in memory and then the data and so forth, all that in memory. We're not going to go into the details of that now. And then the 9 key items about processors that we talked about that you need to be aware of before you purchase a processor. Okay, processor speed, okay, gigahertz, we talked about that already. The socket and chipset that it fits in. What's the architecture? And then multiprocessing. We talked about multiprocessing, multi-threading. You have multiple cores, or you could have 2 processors in there at the same time, like some servers. L1, L2, and L3 cache in memory. We looked at a diagram of that. Talked a little bit about security. Another important thing, kind of memory the processor supports, so that you have the right memory on the motherboard. Okay, so you're going to make this connection, right? You're going to buy a processor that matches the motherboard, and then what memory are you going to buy to put in that motherboard that the processor supports? Okay. Virtualization, the ability to literally have different, for example, operating systems loaded on one machine, and all of them are able to function at the same time, making use of that powerful processing that we have nowadays. And then integrated graphics. You need to be aware of what integrated graphics are built in on the built in with the processor. Okay. And so we looked at some other terms, registers, arithmetic logic unit, control units, and so forth in the processor. So we've got actually a good start on the chapter, and that is it for today. Remember, Thursday we're meeting, the student's going to meet in MH216.